Hello, welcome to Akubank Business Channel. My name is Kanchan, and today in this discussion, we have a very interesting topic, and that is regarding news, which is being discussed in media and other channels. And this is regarding LaMDA, and you know that artificial intelligence, where there are chances of becoming self-conscious, and when we are talking about LaMDA, it's talking about life and death and becoming emotional. To discuss about this topic, we have an interesting guest today, Mr. Sitesh Srivastava, who himself is an IT professional and is very interesting leader. So let's find out his viewpoints on this subject. How are you doing today, and how's the weather at Bangalore?
Kanchan, weather in Bangalore is very good. And all I can say, nazar mat lagana. How are you?
I'm fine, and I feel we may be having rains maybe by the end of this week. Now, actually, we have a very interesting topic regarding artificial intelligence, and when I have heard news that there is an issue of emotion and consciousness, and the AI program, which is developed by Google, LaMDA, is talking about emotions and death. So, have you heard this news?
Well, Kanchan, this is bound to happen. The sci-fi movies have been talking about it. As old as in 2013, there was a Hollywood movie called Her, H-E-R, Her, by Joaquin Phoenix. And we can see artificial intelligence software becoming conscious and talking to the protagonist in that movie. That was 2013. Today we are in 2020. The Google engineer who wrote a long post about it is something that has caught us as a surprise, because most of the corporations who are investing in this kind of technology, I feel, don't want to admit that the sentience or sentient, in Hindi, if I say samvedansheel systems, are becoming more and more norm. In our homes, we have Alexa and Siri, which are smaller versions of it, but very soon it might take a different turn altogether.
Mm-hmm.
So what the Google engineer suggested about the LaMDA, and he put up some of the scripts, some of the discussions he had. He felt that the server has got some feelings about life, death, being not paid, and that he put it as a I didn't think that he put it as a fear, but what I hear is that he has been sent back from Google, therefore, and Google has denied about it. But I think more and more this is going to be the reality, and 2050 we will see something more spectacular. Maybe you will be interviewing a robot like that.
When I really heard this news, I was felt. I mean, it's quite scary, because when I heard this news and I related, my thought process just went into a movie, as you mentioned, one movie, Her. There's a movie, I, Robot, and I really can visualize that something like that, if happens, it will be, I think, not good for mankind. What your ideas on that?
Well, Kanchan, when we started this artificial intelligence journey, this is something not very new. Only we are seeing the applications are very, very new the last 7 to 10 years or so. But this term of artificial intelligence was coined somewhere in 1960s, or probably earlier than that. The scariest part is what we see in the sci-fi movies. The scariest part is what the fear mongers try to put into our heads. But if you see it very, very closely, I have few other thought processes around this thing. One is the real use cases, the real business flows that can be basically helped. The other day I was reading that in Italy city, Pompeii, which is an ancient city and which is also next to one of the most volcanic eruptions happens there. So the city has been destroyed many times in the history, and they have put some robotic dogs to go inside the tunnels and caves and move across some park, so where even travelers don't want to go, and the researchers, it is very hard for them to go. Now, what happens if that robot dog has the artificial intelligence capability and decides, no, today I'm going to stay here now for next 1 month, I'm not coming out? So that kind of a sentience or the consciousness, I think today's programs by which we can control them. But what happens when these evolve? So on that note, I would like to talk about something which is called when the applications started in artificial intelligence. So we have something like a weak artificial intelligence, strong artificial intelligence, and then we have a third angle, which is singularity.
Mhm.
So the weak artificial intelligence is something like our computers started giving us suggestions. Today our Windows machines have Cortana, where they can basically suggest us what to find, where to find. Then we have Alexa and Siris in our home and Google Assistants in our home. But from there, we move to something like a strong artificial intelligence. And when we move to strong artificial intelligence, there comes a time when the machines, they become something like artificial general intelligence comes to the machines, which is what is being spoken in the LaMDA's case, as far as what I understood from the Google engineers post. Okay. But in the current situation, if we do not put right kind of policy and the controls and government's regulations around these systems, by 2050, we are going to see where the machines will become like our own human intelligence, which is good. And that is what is called singularity, where they will become one amongst us in terms of the knowledge, in terms of the thinking. But what happens beyond that, when they go ahead of that singularity, and that will become something like artificial super intelligence.
Mm.
And that is where they can say, we don't agree to the humans. So, but that is still 2050. I would say that is still around 25 years from now. But yes, it is scary as well. And until unless we put across some framework where this data and the controls can be shared, not just data, but the controls of such systems, it is going to be really scary. But Hollywood will definitely make a lot of money. I'm sure about it, Kanchan.
Yes, definitely. You put a very interesting point, and you said that we need these kind of artificial intelligence in terms of research, in terms of medical, and maybe a little helping hand when a human is not able to capable to work. And then you also mentioned that super machines, and when you talk about super machines, that means we are looking towards scenario. Well, I'm taking these scenes from a movie only, like Matrix, when the humans are being grown in the test tube, and I really feel that. Well, we think that sitting here in multiverse, we can travel to Italy, we can travel to Russia. So this is what the whole society is approaching to, actually. But I still feel that
there has to be a physical touch, and you should not leave that. And when you mentioned that machine has to be at par with the human intelligence, that is fine, but actually what I feel is that you have to control, as a human being you have to control the machine. It's not other way around. So, and when we talk about other way around, where the lambda is being mentioned, because when he's discussing about consciousness and life and that kind of things, so that is I think, what you feel is it acceptable or not acceptable?
Well, Kanchan, this debate is as old as when we had the steam engines in our life. We go back to the industrial times. When we had a steam engine, this discussion was still there. When
Mhm.
we had telephone instrument by Graham Bell, this was still there. Nobody believed that the aircrafts would be a possibility just 1905,
Mhm.
before the Wright brothers, when they showcased it for the first time. So in this scientific world and the industrial world, things like these transformational technologies will always be questioned. And I'm saying this is good. More questioning, more good, because this is the only planet where we are found. This is the only planet where we exist. And some people also say that we are the aliens whom we are looking for.
Mhm.
So I think it is important for the policymakers, the regulators, and the scientists, and the engineers, the researchers, and the application developers to come together and then put up a framework. And you remember, Kanchan, I had also given two such tech discussions in Google chapter in Toronto in last 1.5 years, and both were related to artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, artificial intelligence and social welfare of the nations. So I have been raising the consciousness flag among the technologists and the people who are going to regulate as well as procure it. But the very interesting aspect that I want to talk, Kanchan, and I want to leave the listeners in a thinking mode. I was reading one article recently, which actually tried to explain why are we so scared of the sentient artificial intelligence. If we look closely in our Asian cultures, we believe that the plants talk, the plants live, the mountains are the living beings, the rivers are living beings. In our culture, we have talked about Pavan Putra Hanuman, right? So there is a way that we figure that these beings, the plants, can also communicate. Plants are sensitive. The mountains are sensitive. The rivers are living beings. In New Zealand, the tribals have actually won a case where they actually argued successfully that a river is a living being, and therefore the local population should basically respect the river. And our Supreme Court of India has actually cited that as an example, that and said Ganga and Yamuna are living beings. So, in our culture, in our Asian cultures, we have always spoken about sentient belongings which are not human. In Japan, Mount Fuji is supposed to be a kind of a deity. The people worship the beauty of that, and they think that it's a living being. So this has been there in our around us for many many centuries. The only thing is that now the machines are doing it, and the machines that we created, and there is a real fear that they will surpass us, and that is where the fear is. So I think the way we think the plants are not going to harm the humans, or the mountains are not going to harm the humans, that kind of a relationship we have to build with these sentient AI machines and algorithms and the robots.
Yeah, you have raised a interesting point, and I also add one point which you have already discussed is that there has to be a few good regulations, so that that framework, and that has to be discussed not by one country, but maybe people should come together, and while doing all these research and while developing high end artificial intelligence machines, they should also follow, and they should also keep progressing in keeping these framework and up to the mark. So that is good, but you also mentioned that the AI kind of concept was there when in our ancient time, right? So that was quite interesting point which you have raised. Now, my last question will be that suppose the fear we are uh, foreseeing, and it comes to reality. So, what is the way out for humanity?
Well, Kanchan, then we will wait for our superheroes to come, as we have seen in our movies, and superheroes in our respective religions will also then come down and help
Mhm.
us. I feel that the speed of technology that has been in last 50, 70 years, I think it is massive. And I also feel sometimes that it is too fast. What didn't happen in probably thousands of years is happening in last 100, 200 years. If we count the industrial revolution as well. And now we are facing something which is called meta. So the metaverse is there, where me and you can physically interchange our positions, and I could be on the other side, you and you can be on the other side, or we can be in the same room. And if you infuse it with artificial intelligence, you see what all can happen. So, as a human nature, we are bound to think about the fear, the reality, the challenges when these machines will start challenging us. But I would like to think when our children grow up, they start challenging us as a parents also, right? So, first few years, we also fight with the children, and then we realize that the children are going to inherit a different kind of a world and not the world that we grew up in. And that is what will happen with the new generation. They will figure it out. Only what we have to do is that we have to bring in some regulation. We have to curtail the tail of the demon, what is technology. But as we know, the force of the technology cannot be stopped.
Mhm.
So there is an internet and there is a dark internet also, and both coexist. So I think that is the only way to grow, Kanchan. And I really wish all the researchers, policymakers, regulators, scientists, and users like us, we must understand this technology. Try to understand. I don't want to become a currency, just being a user to try it out. I want to try this out as a participant and not as a currency.
Yeah, it's very well said, Satish. And I feel that the knowledge which should be given to all, and through various means are available, and the participation of communities should be there, so that they can also raise few points which can benefit the policymakers. That is a very valid and a good point you mentioned. But at the same time, I hope that if certain things happens, they should not be cover up, and like Google has denied that anything like happened. But there's one scientist who was working on that. He said he went on a holiday, and he was being said, no, nothing has happened. So there's an ambiguity in that, and what I feel is that if artificial intelligence is growing, and it is for us to regulate, it is for us to for our help actually, rather than helping artificial intelligence by humans. So it is the other way around. So I think all these now that we are living in the era of information, so all cover up will not help, and I think we should be more open to new ideas and new challenges and new deadlines and new regulations. So any last thought you want to add to this?
My parting thought with our listeners and to you, Kanchan, is that in this planet, we call ourselves human because we have consciousness, we have intelligence. And we believe that after us comes the animal kingdom. And then around us is nature, which is all conscious and sentient. And that's what we believe in our most of the cultures. So I think everybody would get a chance in the life of this planet. And the machines are far behind in this queue. They will get it, but not so soon. First, from humans, if it has to travel, it will travel to the animal kingdom. The way we are seeing with the pandemics and the viruses. So it will travel to the animal kingdom. It will travel to the nature when the nature will take over, and then probably the machines will come. And that is my sincere hope. May gods save us.
Well, it was quite interesting and thought-provoking discussion today. We'll be meeting again with some more interesting episodes coming in coming discussions. So till then, you take care, and we'll hope that things will work out good for humans when we are talking about artificial intelligence.
Yes, Kanchan. Charlie, over and out.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Very interesting discussion with Mr. Sitesh Srivastava. So what you think about this topic, and I look forward for comments. So we'll be meeting again next Saturday with some interesting topic. Till then, bye-bye and take care.